Hello everyone and welcome to the Milan Sharma Show. I'm your host Milan, and today I will be doing a reaction video on a, a channel I stumbled across. It's called Vintage Tropic, and this video is titled "Should You Judge Others?" And I'm just going to react to it. I think it has some interesting content, and without further ado, here it is.
Today's video, I want to talk about this idea of judgment. By judgment, I refer to practical reason. Using your reasoning to tell people that maybe an action that they're taking is wrong. Maybe some words that they're speaking is wrong. That's what I mean by judgment. I don't mean simply putting down someone, just making fun of them, and that's it. I mean judging people with the purpose of making their lives better.
I think this is so huge because I've stumbled across so many people that believe that really hate judgment and they despise it, and I think it's because of the preconceived notion that judgment is related to all these negative connotations when it really doesn't need to be. So, for example, I see judgment is related to insulting somebody, bullying somebody, berating somebody, making fun of them, all these different things. But in reality, the host of Vintage Tropic, he makes a lot of sense here because he's saying that it doesn't need to be insulting or negative. Judgment can come from a place of support for a friend, colleague, peer, family member, sibling, whomever that is. And I believe when you come from judgment from this paradigm, I think you truly care about somebody, and it's not a superficial relationship, it's actually a deeper relationship because you're stating what you see in somebody else, and you're stating that what they're showing, it could be what they're doing could be harmful, and you want to care for them, you want them to be the best version of themselves. And I think saying something, and yes, that's a judgment, but saying something and pointing that out could lead them in the right direction, and they could be thanking you for that in the future.
Judging people that you care about, judging their actions so that they can better their lives. Look what Aristotle says about practical judgment.
Aristotle suggests that practical judgment is structured in accordance with the deductive thoughts. Yeah, I think judgment. I think people are really cheap with judgment because it's used as in connotation with negativity, and I think it doesn't really need to be. Just like Aristotle says right here, it's in accordance with the deductive thought, and it's pointing out fallacies with people and how they live.
This idea of judgment is something that I've been thinking about a lot lately. You often hear people say, "Why are you being so judgmental?" You often hear people say, "You should not judge." And to a certain extent, I agree with that, right? But at the same time, I can't help but think about the importance of judgment. And that's the reason why I wanted to make this video. I genuinely care about someone's well-being, and I see something in their life and I want to point out, maybe they may be making the wrong decision, taking a wrong action, and I may point that out. And I think that's a judgment, that's pointing out, that's using reason to point out maybe you're not doing the right thing. And people often take a step back and they don't like that.
Right. A lot of people don't like that initially when someone points that out, but I truly believe, I agree with what the host is saying here. I truly believe that there isn't anything wrong with pointing something out that you believe could be harmful to them, because like I said earlier, you're pointing out something that you believe is harmful to them. So you want to at least give the other person an opportunity to explain themselves, and hence you're actually getting to know your friend or whoever you're speaking with. You get to know their viewpoint better. And in fact, when two people have communication with each other, or multiple people, and you clear things up, that's when there's just a deeper connection there, because you see where they're coming from, and even if they don't change their habits, at least they see your objectives, they see your perspective, and they see that you're looking out for them. And I think that's really important.
And I ask my question, why is that? Is that because of the society that we live in? Or is it the culture? Or is it because I'm interacting with young people? Those are the three questions I ask myself when I hear the statement, you shouldn't judge, you being too judgmental. Let's address the first question. Is this idea of you being too judgmental or you shouldn't judge a result of the society that we live in? And by society, I'm referring to American society, right?
Yeah, honestly, I didn't watch this video yet, but my personal opinion is I do believe it's because of our society. Because if you speak with the older generation, especially me, like my grandparents, or even like my parents, they kind of laugh about it because like there's so many organizations, there's so many types of clubs and things like that where debate is just struck down. I've seen it, like there's so many countless YouTube videos going viral when a controversial figure speaks at a university and students demand that he or she be taken out because they don't want that debate to be facilitated because of the fear of those ideas being agreed upon by their classmates. And I think the society the society today in America, debate is not encouraged, especially civil debate. And that's one of the reasons why I started my YouTube channel and the podcast section of my channel where I discuss ideas with people. It's because I believe that civil discourse is so lost currently, right now, especially with the polarization of politics and ideas today between like all types of people. But I can go into that another time, but I'll digress and continue this.
Part of me wants to say yes, that it's completely caused by the society that we live in. And the reason for this is I recently graduated college, right? And I remember when I was in college, one term that I used to hear a lot is this idea of safe space. You know, and when they say safe space, it's not really about talking reasonably or rationally about certain issues. It's mostly an echo chamber where people just kind of agree with each other. Oh, we feel victimized, we feel oppressed, and all that kind of stuff. And I think that's one thing that contributes to this idea of you shouldn't judge, you shouldn't point out something. You know, if your friend does something wrong, you shouldn't point that out. How this idea of...
Yeah, one thing I want to add about the safe space, though, as well, is... Yes, I do believe it's an echo chamber. But more to the point, I believe a safe space is almost like a corner to hide from civilized debate, to hide from people kind of like just having a civil discourse and debate of values, of principles. And I think when there's a safe space, that prevents, it's like a protective measure against that, against conversation, against hard, tense conversations that really help people grow and see differences with each other, maybe agree to disagree or agree to agree. And I think the safe space idea, what it does is it brings people to hide in a corner away from other people, and you're around all these people with similar values. And when you do that, then it creates this echo chamber, as the host here stated, but also it creates a higher or a lower tolerance for other opposing viewpoints. And I think this is replicated in so many facilities, not just in person with safe spaces, but in social media and with technology, with all these factors right here. And I think with technology, for example, with social media, they have mechanisms to, obviously with the feed that you use on your phone, they're going to promote content that you enjoy most. So what are they going to do? They're going to promote content that you like. So that's going to be the viewpoints that you like, and that's going to be facilitating your head more and more. And then the algorithm also promotes. Now this may have changed, but in the past they promoted arguments and things like that because it kept people on their phones. It kept retention rate on the rise when there was arguments facilitated on phones and with technology and etc. So I think that's the true danger of like safe spaces, I believe. Not just the echo chamber portion, which is true, but also the idea of it being a protective measure against opposing ideas and not really listening to anything else. I think that's the key danger of it, because it promotes complacency with thinking and rational thought rather than actually challenging yourself and your beliefs.
Safe space contribute to, people avoiding judgment is that it creates this false narrative that the world is a safe space. That's not true. There is no part in the world that you can be in where you're going to be completely safe. And I believe that it's important to expose people to the nature of the world, to the reality of the world, because you don't want people growing up thinking that everything is rainbows and sunshine, and when they get out in real life, they don't know what to do when they face situation where they have to use their reason, where they have to use, their mind to get out. They're gonna capitulate because they've never been exposed to such realities before.
That is so true, and I think this is why this idea is so dangerous, because going to university, going to college, and I've been to university, and I recently graduated as well. It's a place where people can grow. You're around so many different types of people for the first time in your life as a young person, and it's so much different than high school, because in college you're around all these different types of people. You communicate with all different types of people, and hence you're around all different types of ideas. And if you prevent somebody from learning about those ideas because of fear of being offended or whatever, what happens is they're going to be exposed to these ideas in the future. They're going to be exposed to these ideas maybe in a club or organization, their neighbors, family. It's going to happen. You can't run away from this. And the world isn't as safe in rainbows and sunshine, and I agree with that. It's not. It can be a harsh and it can be a dark place. And I think when, at least, university is not the real world as people say, but it can be a training. It can be like the training wheels. So at least somebody can learn to be autonomous in their belief system, and learn to at least grow and adapt to differing viewpoints.
That's one reason why I think it's very dangerous to tell people about this, let's create safe space. It not only absolves people of judgment, but it also prevents people from seeing the world for what it is. And the second question is this idea of not being judgmental a result of American culture?
And before he gets in this part, I think I don't know if I answered this earlier, but I do believe it is just because of American culture, how in our culture, like politically speaking, we have only two political parties, when so many other countries, especially so many other developed countries in Europe and all around the world, have way more than two political parties. So that in of itself creates such a polarizing dynamic, because there's only two parties, and these two parties have the exact opposing viewpoints on practically everything, whether it's economic issues, social issues, fiscal policy, etc., or foreign policy, all that. They're so different. So there's obviously going to be polarization there, especially with two people that are on the left, with some people on the left and some people on the right debating each other. It's obviously going to be very polarizing, and that's why I think with American culture, I think many universities have coddled the youth in the sense where they can't facilitate and debate anymore with people of opposing viewpoints, because they believe it's a danger to themselves. But in reality, it's just a conversation, and it's very frustrating when I see this, because you're preventing yourself from growing as an individual and as a person. I mean, personally, I hold dear to my values, and I believe in them. I'm a strong believer in these values and principles that I've learned throughout the years. Now, to to evaluate, to step back and reflect on myself. My 15-year-old self the same as my 22-year-old self? Of course not. I've changed my values and principles, and in due time, I've learned and I've grown. And I think when people have this mindset of stubbornly only sticking with what they know, not even listening to what other people have to say, and potentially changing your mind about it, I think that is the danger of human existence and not actually growing as an individual. I think that's a big danger. Because I don't even care about disagreeing with somebody else. If you're not going to hear my ideas or going to name call or insult me, then that'd be a judgment that is negative and bullying and berating. Not exactly the judgment that the host in this channel is talking about. So,
I will say yes to that as well. And I'll tell you a little story. In spring break of this year, I traveled to France with one of my friends. And I remember we went to a restaurant, and it was a good meal. And as I finished the meal, the chef he came to our table, and I remember telling the chef how good the food was in French. And I remember the chef told me, he was like, since you speak really good French, let me tell you something. This is not how you say this statement. And what I was trying to tell him that the food was good. And I thought about that for a second. And I was like, oh, really? This is not how you say it. And he corrected me. And I was like, oh, thank you. I thought about this, and I was like, if this was in the US, people would not take it so lightly. They'll be like, oh, why are you being so judgmental? Why are you telling me, that I was wrong and stuff like you? In the US, it's always avoided to tell people that you did something wrong, your actions were wrong. We've created this culture in the US where you're trying to coddle people, you're trying to create barriers around people so that you don't hurt their feelings and stuff like that. So, and I think it's very dangerous because, like I said, I think that ties into this idea of you creating a culture where people aren't being exposed to the realities of the world. If you remove judgment from the lives of people, they can just do whatever they want, and there's no one to hold them accountable, no one to give them a different perspective. And the last question.
Yeah, I have to agree with the host here because he makes a fantastic point right here, and I couldn't agree more. I do believe that, like in America, people would raise an eyebrow and they would feel insulted if a chef were to say that. And I think experiencing different cultures like that, so like he was in France, experiencing different cultures really opens your eyes to how the American culture is. For example, my father, he's from India, and he would tell me I would learn so much from him because he would explain how his family would speak with things that, with issues that some issues are taboo, and they would talk very openly about it with somebody. And an average American would consider this very offensive, but my dad would say, listen, like, we're just being honest with each other. We see something that's negative, we're going to say something about it. And I think the idea of observing and correcting somebody, sure, you want to do it in a way that's not hurtful, I understand that, but it's something that I think should not be diminished because it could be very helpful and could even save somebody's life if there's an issue with like drugs or alcohol or something so extreme. It can actually save people's lives, and I think if you're fearing actually bringing that up with somebody, it could really bite them later on.
That I ask in this video is maybe the reason why you're the statement you should not be judgmental, you should not judge others, is because I interact for the most part with young people, right? And oftentimes young people, people my age, they often down in their feelings, and I think that's mostly from people who grew up here in America, where they're like, oh, you shouldn't judge, this is my life, and yes, it's your life, but I'm also your friend, and I care about your well-being, and I'm gonna tell you the truth, and I think that's very important. Or
Yeah, I think he makes a really good point here because I've definitely heard that before where someone would say, like, this is my life, like, don't tell me how to run my life. Which, again, I think the host would agree with me here in saying, you know, uh, if I would adopt this mindset, as he's stating right here, I'm not telling you how to run your life in any way or shape or form. But if I'm your friend and you want to hear what I have to say, if you're around me as a company, I'm not going to be around you just to have a good time and just talk sports or whatever or small talk. I'm going to tell you how I feel about what you're doing, or I'm going to see something. I'm going to observe you if you're doing something, and I'm observing your actions. And I see something that I don't like, or I see something that could be hurtful for you in the long run. I'm going to say it, and of course that's not for everything, every little thing. But if there's something of big importance in your life, and I see something that's could be damaging for you, I'm likely going to say that. And you could take it or leave it. That's kind of my mindset with it, is that I'm going to say this because you're around me as a company and you appreciate my presence. So I'm going to take that as an invitation to say, listen, I think you need to at least consider changing this way of your life. So, but yeah, this is a really interesting video here from Vintage Tropic. I'll put the link in the description because it's very good subject that he speaks about here. Um, so yeah, I'll just highly recommend you guys check it out. And thank you guys so much for watching this video. Please like the video, subscribe, but more importantly, liking and commenting really help the channel a lot. So you can comment anything you want. If you hated the video, comment you didn't like it, whatever, it doesn't matter. Comment your favorite emoji, anything you want, as long as it's not too crazy. But thank you very much for listening, guys. I truly appreciate it, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers. All right.